Salman Soos, the BJP, three of the BJP's leaders have written angry letters on this. The foreign minister responded to the speech. We'll hear from him in just a moment. The question will again be asked: why does Mr. Gandhi talk about India's democracy outside of India? And this question will be asked again and again. I think my interest is in understanding the larger question. Why has this now become a global conversation for either side?
Well, I'm not sure that this is something new. Indians have been living abroad for a long time. There are probably about upwards of 30 million people who of Indian origin who are outside the country. Of those, I would say probably about 35 to 40% are what we call non-resident Indians, like I am too. And these are people who are voters in the country. And by the way, even those who are citizens of other countries have deep relationships with India, as they should. So I don't think this is anything new. In fact, the BJP has benefited a lot from being connected to the diaspora over the last, I would say, 10 to 20 years, maybe longer. And so the contestation is for the hearts and minds of Indians everywhere, whether they're in India or elsewhere. But of course, when Mr. Gandhi goes out and makes a speech anywhere, regardless of what he says, he will be targeted. But the fact of the matter is that if the BJP, which keeps saying that he's irrelevant, he's a nobody, it doesn't matter what he says, and whenever he says something, all sorts of ministers come out and start criticizing him. But what he said in the US, for example, नफरत के बाजार में मोहब्बत की दुकान, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Of course, there's a lot of hate that's being spread by the BJP and its affiliates in the country. And we have to fight them everywhere, and we have to fight for that mind space, and we have to fight for that the space in the hearts of peoples who matter. And who are these people? They're all Indians.
Okay, let me bring in Zafar Sareshwala. Mr. Sareshwala, actually, the Prime Minister quite successfully created a constituency among the diaspora. A lot of Mr. Modi's earlier trips were really the first instance of somebody using the Indian diaspora almost as an extension of political branding. Today, Rahul Gandhi seeks to do the same, and the BJP is very critical. I know you followed Mr. Gandhi's US visit quite keenly. We were talking about it the other day also. How do you see this debate around the BJP saying कि ये राहुल जो है ये घर की बातें बाहर ले जाते हैं?
See, Barkha, I'll not venture into the political arena, but I'll tell you what. This is coming of age of India. I mean, any publicity, good or bad, is very good. Because I'll tell you why. I have lived in US and I have also lived in UK. About 20 years back, not a single newspaper in London would even mention India remotely. In fact, I remember two very important instances and why this difference has happened. Why Rahul Gandhi is also getting traction and why Mr. Modi is getting a bigger traction. Why? In 99 or 2000, Financial Times, which is the largest broadsheet financial newspaper published in the West, had come out with a separate, supplement on emerging markets. And in that article, they had not mentioned India at all. A country like Turkey was there prominently mentioned. Through some sources, I went and met the editor of Financial Times, and I said, the whole market cap of Turkish economy, the Turkish stock exchange, only 10 Indian companies can measure that. And you have not even mentioned about anything about India. There were countries like Lebanon and Syria mentioned in that article. India was not there. In 1999, 2000, because I'm talking something which is connected with me, financial services, Dow Jones came up with an Islamic equity index in 99 or 2000. And in that index, not a single Indian company was there. I met the CEO of Dow Jones and I said, at least I can give you 10 Indian companies who need to be mentioned. So about 15, 20 years back, India was not there at all.
So
This
how do
has
you
to be
how
clear.
so how do you see the political
Yeah,
fight being taken
yeah, yeah,
outside? Briefly, because I need to go to Seema for a second
yeah,
before I
yeah.
go
I'll
to
tell you why.
Shruti and
Now, since
Anurag. Yeah, briefly.
last
Yeah.
15 years, India is seen, and of course, lot of governments have done, but Mr. Modi took it to the next level. And I'll tell you why. Because I have accompanied him in first 8 or 9 visits. When he visited US for the first time, I was there with him in Japan, in Saudi Arabia, in UAE. He has that style of connect with the people. And when he came for the first time, he wrote op-ed in New York Times. He was mentioned. He wrote an op-ed in Guardian when he went to the UK. So Mr.
Yeah.
Modi connected with the Indian diaspora and also largely with the people there
So
and the political
so
parties
you
there.
so
So
you
I
seem to be saying
I'll add.
yeah.
I'll finish. I'll finish now. So that is giving advantage to Mr. Rahul Gandhi also, because India is now seen as some in a position. So
Okay.
even Rahul Gandhi is seen as a politician of
Got
opposition.
it. Got
He
it. You're
is
saying
getting
there's greater
traction because
interest.
India is now on center stage.
You're saying there's greater interest in the India story, and which is why comments by both of these gentlemen are making waves. I just, before I come to Shruti and Anurag, Seema, briefly, one of the arguments you make in your column is that while Mr. Gandhi did well, he sometimes, and I'm quoting here, he sometimes felt like a Hallmark card, and at other times someone with a little more edge. But you also say that the groups that were organizing Mr. Gandhi's visit, you would locate them on the extreme end of the spectrum. You say that their rhetoric goes from being anti-BJP to on some days anti-India. And I want you to talk a little bit about that, because that's something that the BJP is likely to, of course, pounce on.
Right. So these groups are affiliated with the larger sort of Arab Muslim groups as well in the US. Some of their office holders, some of the people who have been associated with these groups have had links to extremist organizations, um, not just in Pakistan, but also in the Arab world. So they're controversial in some senses. And ever since the BJP came to power, it is a fact that Indian Muslims living abroad have felt somewhat alienated, right? So they have sort of joined hands with other activist groups here. Now, some secular Hindu groups, the Hindus for secularism, those groups are also part of this larger coalition. So I would say that this one particular group that seemed very active on Capitol Hill on behalf of Mr. Gandhi is controversial now. Many people kind of stay away from them because of their extreme rhetoric. They've used, they've called Modi a Nazi and things like that. So it's very extreme. Congressional staffers have become a little bit alarmed by their propaganda and their constant press releases, their constant sort of briefings, quote
Yeah.
unquote, briefings that they hold.
Yeah, so let me bring in Shruti now, and then Anurag. Shruti, I think that's one of the things that's been a subject of some commentary, juxtaposed, of course, with Mr. Gandhi's comments on the Indian Muslim League. But my larger interest still remains in my original question. Why does this conversation need to be global? I'm not saying Rahul is the only one who does it. Mr. Modi, Mr. Gandhi has done it now. Mr. Modi has done it in the past. Why? We're trying to understand why.
I mean, historically, it has always been the case. I don't think it starts with Mr. Modi. I mean, it starts with Nehru, it's Indira Gandhi. Political leadership is not only national. And all the more so when India is a rising power, there's a lot of interest globally in the place of India and where its future is going to be. So the world is a stage for Indian politics. In fact, I don't want to belabor this point too much, but of course, actually, it's Mr. Modi who is the exception here because of his slightly, his bumpy kind of international image in the early 2000s, and his, as it were, rehabilitation post his victory in 2014. It has been pretty, par for the course for Indian leaders to kind of project an international persona for themselves. And that goes back to also the contestation of what India might be.